Daniel from GroYourMusicStudio.com, and in this series of videos this week, I'm going to talk to you about the actions that you need to take in your studio to literally schedule your success. Now, recently, I ran a survey through my blog and through the thousands of folks who read my blog and asked, what sort of questions do you have about studio marketing and studio growth? What problems are you experiencing? What would you like to learn more about? And as I was looking at the various answers that came in, I saw a trend to many of the questions, and I began to group the questions into groupings of issues that people are experiencing. And to that end, this week I want to talk about scheduling out success in your studio. And literally, I am being quite serious about this. I actually believe it is possible to do that. And that could at first seem a little bit like a fantastical claim, but I think you'll see as we kind of go through this that it really isn't. Now, I also want to say up front, this is not just for small studios. Obviously, the majority of studios that are out there in the universe of private teaching studios across the US, across the UK, Australia, many places around the world, the majority of those studios are single teacher studios that have under 50 students. But I will tell you that in my travels, so to speak, and in working with a lot of different studio owners, I have seen that a lot of these same problems crop up for studio owners, including the one that I'm going to talk about today. Because as I mentioned, I'm doing a whole series this week on a number of things that can be scheduled, that can be planned, so that a studio is quite successful and can grow more quickly. So if you have a larger studio, don't think that there isn't something here for you. Conversely, if you're a smaller studio, you might think, is it really that important that I go to this level of detail and intentionality in my studio? What I would say to you is absolutely. If you're serious about growth, if you're serious about kind of taking control, taking charge, meeting the kinds of students that you want to meet, then I would say this is very, very important. Now, I do want to address the elephant in the room, which is it really that simple? It could seem a little hokey to say that you can schedule your success, or what does that even mean? So there's a quote that I found that I absolutely love. It's from the science fiction author Arthur C. Clarke, and he says, "I don't believe in astrology. I'm a Sagittarius, and we're skeptical." Okay, so if there is a skeptical nature about you, if you hear this and you think, what's going on here? Is this really real? I would just say, hang in with me there. I'm going to show you a series of actions that I do in my own studio, that I've helped other studios set up and implement, that you can do throughout the, daily in some cases, weekly, monthly, and yearly, that really can make a big difference. And like I said, I'll be doing several videos on this week. We're not quite to the topic here yet today because I'm kind of setting it up in this moment, but that's the plan. And the premise behind these videos is that no one is successful by accident, right? We get exactly what we plan for. And I do want to kind of set the stage in the front end. These videos are not intended to be preachy. They're not intended to be judgmental, and they're not intended to be for any certain type of person. We are going to talk about scheduling. We are going to talk about planning. We are going to talk about being a little more regimented in our studio business life. But this isn't only for type A people. I would put it this way. If you were to compete in a triathlon or a Tough Mudder race, or you wanted to get so good, at the culinary arts that you could go on that really awesome cooking show, Chopped, no matter what personality type you are, type A, type B, or somewhere in between, there is a certain level of discipline that's going to have to come in our life. I don't think this is surprising to us as musicians, because we had to do this to become good at the musical instrument that we're proficient in. No matter what type we are, we had to undergo training. We had to have a plan to get this exam piece ready by the end of the semester, back when we were in college or university. So this isn't only for type A or type B people. And then finally, right before I jump into this one today, keep track. As we go through each of the videos this week, keep track. Which of these things are you already doing? Which of these are you thinking in the back of your mind, oh yeah, I really should be doing that? Of course, not with a judgmental attitude towards yourself, and certainly not from a judgmental attitude from me, but just keep track in your mind. What could I add to my studio to really improve the results that I'm getting? So with all that build up, okay, I really hope it's worth it, right? Let's get to the first one, and this is a big one. I spoke with a 200 student music school last year that was not doing this. I don't know how the studio owner kept her sanity. This is a big one, and it's one that when I did it, it really changed the results that I was getting in terms of the number of people that were actually joining my studio. And it's simply this, okay? I guess I could do a drum roll. I've been building this up for like 5 minutes now, but here we go. You absolutely, one of the first ways that you can schedule success in your studio is actually having a regimented, disciplined schedule with which you follow up with leads. That's the very first thing. One of the very best things I did for my income was come up with a system with which I followed up with leads. And I'm going to get into the details. So this isn't, again, a conceptual video, an abstract video that gives you a good idea. I want to actually get into the things that I did that made a difference in the life of my studio. I want to get into the things that clients of mine have done that have made a noticeable difference in the life of their studio. And I actually also do want to mention on the front end that this was mentioned in that survey that I mentioned, and I'm going to link up to that below. If you have a question you want me to answer on video sometime in the month of September, because I'm going to be doing one of these every single day, maybe even twice in a single day. If you have a question, after this video is over, I'm going to leave a link below the video, and you can go in and ask any question, and I'll answer it on video for you. But this question actually came from Ruth, and she said, how do I track where everyone is in the process of joining my studio? I tend to do it willy-nilly. I need a tracking system or spreadsheet. So here's the thing. Here's someone who knows that there's a problem. She even knows the solution to the problem. I mean, she kind of even mentioned it there, right in there, yet she's feeling resistance or confusion around solving that problem. So here we go. Here's the solution. First off, I feel like it should go without saying, but you have to have a central place to keep track of every person that is reaching out and contacting you. Here's a perfect way of knowing if that system is robust in your studio. If you couldn't tell me within, let's say, 2 minutes, every person, their name, phone number, email address, and maybe even the details of what they wanted from your studio, if you couldn't tell me within 2 minutes, everyone who reached out to you in April of 2017, then your system is not robust enough. Because I will tell you right now that if you said, Daniel, name every person that reached out to you in April of 2017, I could turn around to this computer right here and tell you within 2 minutes every single name, their phone number, their email address. If you are not yet to that level of data collection and organization, I would say, and I mean this, I am not exaggerating when I say this, you are losing money, period. Because it's that level of detail that we have to go to it's that level of detail that allows us to be, as Dave was saying here at the beginning, to be a rock star in our studio, to be a rock star at enrolling people in our studio. Now, like I said, I say this with no sense of judgment. This is not meant to be a dump on studio owner session. What I'm saying is that when you get to that level of organization, you're going to feel a change in your income, period. And the reason I can say that with confidence is I've seen it in my own life. I was doing an evaluation with someone this very week on the West Coast, and we had worked together on increasing the number of leads that she got to her studio, and she was feeling that increase. And I asked her about some numbers because we were going over her numbers in her studio for the last couple months, and I noticed a month where the numbers had really dropped in the number of students that she'd signed up because she'd kind of had this steady growth curve. And she said, you know what, I just didn't follow up with people that month. So again, there's no sense of exaggeration here. There is a direct correlation, okay? Now, getting into what the system is. I'm going to give you a couple very specific ideas, things that I have done. At one point in time, if anybody called my studio, emailed me, if anybody had filled out a form on my website, sent me a text message, sent me a message through lessons.com or Thumbtack when I used to do that. If anyone had ever done that, their name got entered into an Excel spreadsheet. And again, name, rank, serial number, no, I'm kidding. Name, phone number, email address, any message they left me. Oftentimes, I would do follow-up research on that person. I would go look at them on Facebook just to get a sense of who that person was. Over time, as I looked at all the people that reached out to me, I kind of in my mind had a profile of the kind of person that was reaching out to my studio because I could see what they liked on Facebook, because I could see the kinds of things they posted. I began to to develop, this mental image of the kinds of people that were reaching out to my studio. And, I could build a relationship with that person faster when I actually did get in touch with them, simply because of the fact that I had taken the time to care about that person and learn what they were about and learn what they were like. This wasn't, I wasn't Facebook stalking them. It was simply curiosity in the kinds of people that were reaching out to my studio. So sometimes, even in that spreadsheet, I would put a link to their Facebook profile. Because if I wanted to think, what kind of shows do the people that contact my studio, what kind of shows do they like? What things are they posting? What is in, kind of the public consciousness in my area? This might seem like I'm going, to crazy degrees of obsession, but it's that kind of information that separates my outreach efforts from the outreach efforts of even much larger studios around me. So I would have all this in a spreadsheet. But over time, I got more sophisticated. And I made it so that all of my marketing pointed really just to my website. I didn't want to be getting messages from all these different places. So my Facebook ads, my Google ads, like all of these things began to point just to my website. And I made it so that when people filled out my form, it actually automatically got entered into a database in a WordPress plugin. Now, there's a couple WordPress plugins that you could use if you want to, again, if you want to go to this level of detail, if you want to get control over this in your studio. One of them is Ninja Forms. Another one is Contact Form 7. I eventually moved to FormStack. So like I said, going back to February of 2015, when I kind of finally decided on which one I liked the best, I can tell you every single name that got entered on my website because it is in my FormStack database. And that kind of leads me to the next point, which is how I follow up with those people. Now, before I go into that though, I want you to kind of take mental note right now, just where you're at. And I would love, if you're hearing this and you're thinking, that's a level of detail I'm not even sure that I really want to go to. I'd love for you to write that in the comments below. If there's an objection here, if there's a question, if you've tried this before and it didn't work for you, I would just love, to kind of hear that. And I'll either address it right now. I don't mind being interrupted because obviously I'm just doing this off the cuff anyway, so it isn't like I have prepared notes for this necessarily, or a script, I guess. I do have an outline. But, if there's an issue there or there's a question or a follow-up question, I would certainly love to see that and either answer it in a future video or, deal with it right now. But kind of getting to it and really moving into my last thought for the day is that once you have that database, what do you do? What's your action? So I'm going to give you a couple directives that if you were to do these things, you're going to see an increase in the number of people that convert in your studio. So if people contact you and you reach back out and then they disappear off the face of the planet, you never hear from them again, what I'm about ready to tell you will solve that problem. If people tend to be sort of only somewhat interested, or they seem skeptical of your studio, and it feels like pushing a rock uphill to get them to say yes to join your lesson program, what I'm about ready to tell you can change that for you. And it's this. When someone reaches out to me, again, either phone or that, filling out my form on my website, which is really the main two ways that people contact me now, as like I mentioned before, I've really decreased the number of ways that I allow people to get in touch with me. But if that happens, you need to be getting in touch with those people very shortly after that. And then, if you get in touch with them and they don't reach back out to you, they don't return your call, they don't return your email, I don't recommend texting them on the first. Some people, again, it's funny the kinds of things that I just take for granted that you shouldn't do that a lot of teachers have told me, oh yeah, that's what I do. Like I'll text them just like really quickly after that. I mean, if you do that and it works really, really well for you, great. By all means, you are the exception that proves the rule. Most people don't get a lot of response that way. Reach out to them, call them, email them, and if they don't follow up with you, you need to get in touch with them over the next 2 weeks. You need to follow up with them at least 6 times in a 2-week period. If you do that, you will end up getting in touch with over 75%, over 80%, maybe even over 90% of those people. But if you do not have that kind of tenacity, what you're going to end up doing is feeling the pinch of that lack of interest, and you're going to end up going to the Facebook groups and saying, nobody cares about lessons anymore. People reach out to me and then they just disappear off the face of the planet. I will tell you, it is not them. It is you. You must follow up more. Now, the common objection I get to that, and I've been through group coaching with 70 different studios this year, 70, and I get a common objection to that in the folks that are working with me, either privately or in the context of a group coaching format. And it's, Daniel, aren't they going to be annoyed? Aren't they going to be, kind of ticked off and peeved? And this is what I would say. If that's your biggest concern, I will tell you that there are probably a lot of areas in your studio that if you bring more boldness or assertiveness to, you're going to see a bump in your results across the board. Because the truth of the matter is, and I don't say this with any sense of, ego or brashness, but I don't care. I don't care if people think I'm contacting them too much. They reached out to me. I see it as a point of service to reach back out to them until I get a hold of them. People are very busy these days. We are in a more distracted age than we have ever been, and people need that kind of tenacity to follow through. That's the kind of tenacity we need to cut through the noise. And if they cared enough to go to Google search, type in piano lessons or violin lessons or voice lessons, find your studio, fill out your form, or make a phone call, the very least you can do is honor that level of commitment up to that point by reaching out to them more than once. Now, let me give you an example, a couple examples of why I just don't care. There was a lady who this was years ago, probably at least 5 years ago, but I've never forgotten this. There was a lady that 5 years ago reached out to me, filled out my form. She talked about her granddaughter and how she wanted to have her granddaughter enrolled and that her granddaughter loved music. And I just got the sense through the message she left me that this is a family I really wanted to work with. Like, I could just tell that this was a person that was really excited. I reach out to them, and to my surprise, I don't get in touch with them. They don't email me back within a couple days. So I call, I email, I call, I email. I kind of alternated between the two. And after I called, a number of times, I just kind of gave up on contacting that aggressively, and I downgraded them to my once a month follow-up schedule. And for a couple months after that, I kept calling that lady about once a month, maybe every 3 weeks. And after, I think it was about 3 months, I call and I leave a message. And within 5 minutes, I get a call back from an unfamiliar number. But because I've been calling that number so much, I kind of recognize the number as, oh, wait, that's the lady I just called. And she gets on and she starts out the conversation by profusely apologizing that she has been so hard to get a hold of. And then she then thanks me. She then thanks me that I was so tenacious because, and here it is, this lady, she had a granddaughter. Her mom had just been put in hospice care and had died. It was a sudden thing, this lady's mom. And she had been really busy taking care of her mom for several months. And just because of the circumstances of life, hadn't followed up with me. And she ended up signing up on the phone right there. They came in for the trial lesson. The granddaughter still to this day takes lessons from me. Fantastic relationship. This was 5 years ago. I'm so glad that I kept following up. Period. I have no regrets. And for the people that I never hear from, because there are, a fair number of people that I don't hear from even when I follow up aggressively like that, because they never get back in touch with me, I don't have to hear from them how much they hate me for calling them that many times, right? So it's all in our head that we think people are on the other end of the phone, giving us two thoughts. We should be so lucky that people would think about us that much. If they did, they probably would call back. The reason they're not calling back is they're really not thinking about us. So don't be worried about, don't have these imaginary thoughts of what other people are thinking about you. I have never had a person that I followed up with that aggressively end up coming back to me and not joining because I called them too many times. Usually it's kind of a neutral thing, and they're just like, hey, literally, probably 95% of them are saying to me, hey, sorry I was so hard to get in touch with. They feel bad. It's not me that should feel bad. It's not you who should feel bad. So plan to follow up that aggressively. And then, let's see. I went on a little mini rant there, so I got to collect my thoughts. You know what? I think that's actually a good place to stop. I really do think that is, because really where we go from there is that scheduling and planning success doesn't end with how you follow up with people. Scheduling, planning your success doesn't end with you having a set time set aside, on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis to kind of go through that long-term lead list. Because and this is something I left out. Yeah, this is what I was thinking of, is that when once a month, that long database of names, I will go back through and I will send out a mass email to all those people. And what I will tell you is that there have been people that years later have ended up joining because of it. And that's the story. I knew I was forgetting something. That's the story I mentioned in the description for this video, was that there was a family that got in touch with me. And the family said, hey, we really want to start our son. Great. How old is he? Oh, he's 3. Well, I've never worked with a 3-year-old. I don't ever intend to work with a 3-year-old. And I said, and at the time, I wasn't even working with kids as young as 4, and I rarely took a 5-year-old. I just wasn't as confident back then. Now I take 5-year-olds all the time, and even a really strong 4-year-old, one that has a good attention span when they go through my interview lesson. And I said, listen, I really recommend waiting until they're about 6. I said, can I follow up with you? And what I ended up doing throughout the time that child was 3, 4, 5, and then after that child turned 6, so 3 or 4 years later, I kept following up with that family throughout that time saying, hey, just want to let you know, haven't forgotten about you. When, I'm not going to say the name, but when such and such name gets to this age, can't wait for him to come in and, start experiencing music, at my studio. And when he turned 6, contacted him in the fall after he turned 6, so around the time of the fall rush, and reached back out to them, and it was time. They joined my studio. That was a 4-year relationship in the making. And there are other people too that I have followed up with over time, and 2 years after they initially contacted me and then ghosted on me, never got back in touch with me, I kept following up with them by email. I had them on that long-term follow-up list. I would email them roughly every 1 to 3 months. People have said, you know what, it's time. And they've just gotten back in touch with me, and for whatever reason, they didn't act like it was weird or anything. They just joined my studio. I have stories like that every single year, and it doesn't cost me more than 15, 20 minutes, maybe once a month or once a quarter, to go back through that list and send out all those emails to all those people who've contacted me in the past. And that list has ballooned to a very large size by this point. And I find it to be worth it, because it adds thousands of dollars to my income every year, my studio income every year, to be that aggressive and to serve people with that degree of intentionality and caring that much. And again, whether you're a type A person and you schedule your life down to the minute, or you're type B, this isn't based on whether you're shy or outgoing, introvert, extrovert, type A or type B. This is just what has to happen for you to schedule success in your studio. Tomorrow, I'm going to come back with another video, barring someone, having a really good question that they might leave in the comments below. Tomorrow I'm going to come back with a video, and I'm going to talk about how to create and how to schedule excited customers that are excited to be in your studio and to continue to stay in your studio. So I typically do these sometime between 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern each day. I know that's a large time. I try to shoot for 11. It just wasn't going to work today because I was on the phone with a client. But check back in tomorrow. Leave a comment below. If you like this video, share it. And as I mentioned, there is a survey that's going to be attached once this video has kind of uploaded. After we've gone live, I'm going to leave a link to a survey. Would love to get your feedback. What questions I might answer for you this month once I finish this series on how to schedule success in your studio. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I really do appreciate your attention, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.